They didn't just fire me. They erased me, and they thought they could keep using the system I built. Without me. So I let it crash. It all started 3 years ago, when I joined a mid-sized logistics software firm called DeltaPath. They weren't glamorous, and they weren't trending on social media. But they had solid clients, and an even more solid problem. Their back-end infrastructure was a mess. Files duplicated, delivery data constantly overwritten, and their customer ticketing system still ran on a Frankenstein patch of Excel and duct tape. I wasn't brought in as an executive. I wasn't even senior level. I came in as a solutions architect, buried 2 layers under people who barely understood what APIs were, but I didn't care about titles. I cared about fixing things. So I stayed late, learned their infrastructure inside and out, rewrote core components of their supply chain tracking system. And eventually, I started building something better, from scratch. I called it Helix. It was meant to unify their operations, live delivery tracking, automated inventory adjustments, AI-assisted route forecasting, and a sleek client dashboard. Nothing flashy, just efficient, reliable, scalable. Everything DeltaPath wasn't before. I pitched it quietly to the CTO one day after a quarterly review. He raised an eyebrow. "Did someone ask you to start building a new system?" "No," I said, "but you asked why we're missing deadlines. This is why." He skimmed my prototype, said, and told me he'd get back to me. I didn't hear anything for 2 months, until one morning he called me into a meeting with the CEO, the head of product, and 2 VPs I had never spoken to before. My palms were sweating. I thought I was about to get fired for going rogue. Instead, they wanted to move Helix into full development, with you leading the architecture, the CEO said, smiling. They gave me a new title, Lead Systems Strategist, a small raise. No equity, but I accepted, because I believed in what I was building. For the next year and a half, I lived inside Helix. I coded it. I managed the team. I debugged it on weekends and took calls at midnight when it crashed during client demos. It became my obsession, my purpose, my solution to every broken process they'd buried for years. When we launched it in beta, client satisfaction jumped by 37%. Internal errors dropped by 80%. And DeltaPath started getting acquisition interest from a few very big players. That's when things shifted. Suddenly, I was being left off email threads. My roadmap documents were presented in meetings without my name on them. The CTO, who used to casually call me the brain of Helix, started referring to it as our collective success. I started feeling invisible inside the thing I created. Still, I pushed forward, because I thought the results would speak for themselves. Then came the restructuring. They called it an organizational optimization. But I knew what it was the moment HR called me in. "We're letting you go," the woman said, eyes flicking nervously across the printed script. "Why?" I asked, stunned. She swallowed. "Your role has been absorbed into the systems division under the CTO's office." "My role?" I repeated. "You mean the one I built? Around the product I created?" She didn't answer. The CTO didn't even show up to the meeting. I packed my things in silence, not one word of appreciation. Not a single acknowledgement. They took my system, took credit, took control. They thought I'd vanish, but they didn't know. Helix had something built into its core that none of them had ever asked about, something I never documented, something only I knew how to maintain. And without me, it was only a matter of time. I had written every line of that foundation. I knew where the string points were, where the load balancer needed daily tuning, where a missing patch in the forecasting module would slowly poison the whole system from the inside. They wanted to steal what I built. Fine, let's see how well they run it when the walls start caving in. The first glitch appeared exactly 12 days after I was fired. No, because I watched. The public shipment dashboard started displaying duplicate entries, small ones. A few packages logged twice. A few marked delivered before they even left the warehouse. Nothing big enough to raise alarms, just enough to confuse the support team and trigger manual checks. I didn't lift a finger because I didn't need to sabotage anything. I didn't have to hack or plant a virus or touch a single piece of their infrastructure. All I had to do was walk away. You see, when Helix was built, it relied on a series of automated health check scripts, diagnostic routines that I personally scheduled and maintained daily. I never documented them because I ran them manually through my own secure access. Not out of secrecy, but out of habit. They weren't part of the official codebase. No one even knew they existed. Without those scripts, the system wouldn't crash. It would decay, slowly, quietly, from the inside out, and that's exactly what it did. By week 3, warehouse managers were calling in about forecasting errors. The routing AI started assigning deliveries to drivers who were off the clock. The real-time GPS data lagged by 2 hours in one region and 20 seconds in another. Confused emails pinged across departments. The CTO responded by blaming legacy data ingestion conflicts. Nice try. By week 5, 2 clients had paused their contracts to reevaluate the platform's reliability. The internal team was scrambling. I could tell by the LinkedIn posts from junior engineers vaguely referencing late nights and unexpected edge case bugs. I watched quietly. I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, didn't warn them. Didn't help. And then the real collapse began. One of DeltaPath's largest clients, a retail logistics chain operating across 7 states, suffered a massive system-wide failure. Their entire weekend shipment data vanished. Just gone. I knew exactly why. A memory cache refresh routine I'd built never triggered. Because I was the one who scheduled it every 72 hours through a secure cron job on a sandboxed internal tool. The CTO never even knew it existed. Without it, the system buckled under pressure. And buckled hard. They tried restoring from backups. But I had warned them, months before I was fired, that the backup intervals were insufficient.
That a
full restore could take 6 to 8 hours and roll back live order data. They never listened, and now they were paying for it. That weekend, their client terminated the contract. Just like that, $5 million in annual revenue gone. I started getting messages from former coworkers. Some subtle, "Wish you were still here." Others more direct, "Do you know what's going on with Helix? No one can find half the deployment configs." One even said, "They're pretending like they didn't screw you over. But everyone knows." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I focused on building again, this time. For me, I'd quietly launched my own platform, Lumia Systems, smaller in scope, cleaner in design, and built from everything I learned during Helix, only better. Modular, resilient, documented, and entirely mine. I didn't need vengeance. I needed leverage. So, I reached out to 3 of DeltaPath's former clients, the ones who had left quietly during the early days of the Helix collapse. I offered them a trial migration to Lumia. Custom-built features. No marketing fluff. Just performance. They signed within weeks. And soon the whispers started. Not public. Not loud, but meaningful. There's a new player in the game. Lumia's onboarding was smoother than anything we've seen. We didn't realize how fragile Helix was until we left. I didn't even mention DeltaPath. I didn't have to. They were falling apart on their own. And I was rising, silently, right next to them. The only difference was I knew what I was doing, they thought. Firing me would make me disappear. But I don't vanish. I build quietly. And when the foundation cracks, I walk away calmly. Because I know exactly when everything is about to fall. 3 months after I was fired, DeltaPath went into emergency restructuring. They didn't call it that. Of course, they called it a strategic internal realignment to meet evolving technological demands. But I knew the truth. The system they stole was eating itself alive. Helix was never meant to run without oversight. It wasn't just software. It was a living process. One I nurtured, adjusted, and evolved daily. Without the scripts, the safeguards, the quiet, behind-the-scenes interventions, it wasn't sustainable. It looked sleek on the surface, but under pressure, it was glass. Their mistake wasn't firing me. Their mistake was assuming the system could exist without the person who understood it. And now the cracks weren't just technical. They were financial. I heard through one of our former engineers, now working at Lumia, that the CTO resigned quietly. The CEO was reportedly shopping the company for acquisition, but no one was biting. Too much damage. Too many complaints. Too many ongoing issues with system integrity. Meanwhile, Lumia was growing faster than I could have predicted. We onboarded 5 new clients in the last quarter alone, 3 of them former DeltaPath accounts. They didn't switch out of spite. They switched because they were tired of excuses, because my platform worked, because I built it not for flash, but for resilience. One day I received an email, not from a recruiter, not from an assistant, from the CEO of DeltaPath herself. The subject line was short: consulting request. She wrote politely that they were exploring third-party consultants to help restore Helix's core architecture, that my insight and original vision would be valuable, that they were open to discussing compensation. I stared at the message for a long time, and then I did something petty. I replied with one sentence: "That system is no longer mine to fix." Then I archived the email and got back to work, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was done trying to prove my worth to people who only saw value when it served them. Done being the nameless architect behind someone else's throne, Lumia grew, not overnight, but steadily. I hired carefully, trained quietly, built a team that didn't just follow instructions, but understood vision. I documented everything, I gave credit. I stayed human. And in that process I did more than just build a company. I reclaimed my name. Years from now, people won't remember Helix for its fancy rollout or its broken promises. They'll remember the moment it stopped working, the moment they realized the system had always relied on someone they discarded, and when they look for what came after, what rose from the ashes of that silent collapse, they'll find Lumia, and my name, not in the footnotes, but front and center, because some systems don't crash in flames, some systems crash in silence. Right after the person who built them walks away and never looks back.